Welcome back to the Kaspa Silver YouTube channel. In today's video, I want to discuss with you guys the potential risk that Kaspa may have. And personally, I believe that these risks are not groundbreaking to the point where you need to sell Kaspa right now. I personally have a rebuttal to the two topics that I'm going to talk about, but let's go ahead and get into this. So the first risk that Kaspa can potentially have is the standpoint when it comes to Kaspa and the fact that it has living people that are still currently actively working on it, a living founder and living active contributors. Now, the funny thing about this is Bitcoin is in the same position. The only person that's pretty much not living is the founder, but Bitcoin today still continues to be coded upon and contributed to, and these are by people who are alive and can have opinions about Bitcoin. And this pretty much started a few months ago when Bitcoin University made this video asking the question, is Kaspa the next Bitcoin? And in this video, he proposed the question and asked, is Kaspa anti-Muslim money? Which in this video, I go ahead and rebuttal this and say why this question is pretty much ridiculous, because code is code. Kaspa is fully decentralized, and there's not one single person that is not allowed to use Kaspa based on wherever they're from in the world. Anyone can use Kaspa. Anyone can send, receive, buy, sell, and trade Kaspa however they feel. And it doesn't matter who contributes to Kaspa. It doesn't matter who created Kaspa. Kaspa just simply exists. And so recently, Crypto Archie had made this post that gained a lot of attention. I mean, it hit over 40,000 views here, and said Kaspa devs should refrain from over partisan political talk if they want to be seen as a fully decentralized project. It will turn a lot of people off. Money should be completely neutral. And so this sentence right here is pretty much an oxymoron to me, because he says here that the Kaspa devs should refrain from over partisan political talk if they want to be seen as fully decentralized project. But the whole point of a decentralized project is the fact that anyone can contribute to it, even people who you may disagree with. So it's kind of like an oxymoron, because if you actually stand for decentralization, that means that you wouldn't care who actually uses the network, because it's decentralized and they are allowed to use it, even if them using it is for bad intentions, or even if people who are contributing to it have bad opinions that you simply just don't agree with. And so here are some of my responses to this. I say Cas is bigger than anyone's opinion on X. Cas is decentralized money where anyone, including people you may not like, can contribute or not. Cas is neutral and simply exist. People will come and go. Cas will persevere. Fiat forces you to adopt. Cas incentivizes you to adopt. And this person says, I hope you're right, but I think you might not. The longer something goes, there is the risk that Cas will be connected to certain opinions. I hope nobody will say, if you support Kaspa, you support whatever in the future. Do you know what I mean? And I said, I know what you mean, but it's simply a tactic from people who already don't care to opt into the system, just like the people who opt into Bitcoin and were called supporters of tax fraud and criminals in the early days. This is the natural battles new hard money goes through. And Bitcoin in its very, very early days was struggling with people always labeling it as a coin for criminals, and basically just saying that if anyone's using it, you're just trying to avoid taxes. So they labeled people as criminals if you use Bitcoin. So Kaspa's just basically experienced the same type of growing pains that Bitcoin experienced in the very early days. I also said here, the US handles issues pretty badly. For crying out loud, they are over $35 trillion in debt, yet people still need to trade and hold the dollar. This is how I believe Kas will work. People might have opinions you disagree with and be a part of Kas, but basing whether or not to adopt Kaspa on an individual's thoughts could give you a bad result later. Kaspa is not a stock. It's digital money, and your willful ignorance doesn't disqualify you from experiencing suffering from something you may need to learn to use to stay ahead financially. And this is the thing with the US dollar. There are so many bad things that are associated with the US dollar, but yet everyone continues to use it and need to use it. And the difference between Kaspa and the US dollar is the fact that we are forced to use the US dollar despite it having very, very bad things behind it. But with Kaspa, you're not forced to. If you don't like it, just don't use it. But just be mindful of the fact that you not using it doesn't exclude you from possibly suffering financially from you making that decision. And so recently, Bitcoin University created another video here called Shitcoiners Just Don't Get It. And on the thumbnail, you could see that he basically just put a fat person eating a sandwich and the Kaspa logo, I guess trying to refer us Kaspa people as just fat people online. But he went on in this video, and I want to note that he once again had blocked me again ever since a few weeks ago when we were just simply discussing ideas. He eventually just could not agree to disagree and blocked me again, but yet decided to still respond to me under his comment section when he makes these videos. So I went ahead and posted a comment and asked him, what is it going to take for you to basically change your mind? And this was his response to me. He says, Kaspa can never compete with BTC over the long term because Kaspa is not neutral money. Its Israeli founder and devs have published what I believe are very anti-Palestinian and anti-Muslim tweets and videos. We are lucky not to know Satoshi's personal political beliefs. Kaspa miners are also going to have a very tough time living off of transaction fees, since there's unlikely to be real adoption soon and the mining subsidy is going off a cliff. Lots of new coins outperform BTC in the first few years, then trend to zero against BTC. That will be Kaspa's fate as well. Many people will have to learn this lesson the hard way. And I went ahead and responded to him and said, the neutral money argument has been discussed plenty of times and is very subjective. So the only thing that can prove you wrong about that is time. So let's wait and see. I would say this though, if you think someone that contributes to a decentralized project has views you disagree with, affects the neutrality of the project, then what is the point of crypto? Bitcoin is being developed in the same way. There are people who are still contributing and making code. These people could decide to have opinions you don't like, but it shouldn't matter because it's decentralized. If you believe in decentralization, then that means anyone can partake in the network, including people you may disagree with. There are a good variety of devs that work on Kaspa, and the one you particularly get upset about is a researcher, not a coder, that has gained more attention simply because of his contributions to Kaspa. What about Michael Saylor? He has more followers and a lot more weight when he says things. If he starts saying things controversial, does this just end Bitcoin neutrality? That would be ridiculous. You have a double standard when it comes to decentralization. And then I went ahead and responded to his claims that Kaspa is just not going to get adopted in time and the fees are not going to be high enough to sustain miners. And I said, where are you getting your data on unlikely to be real adoption soon? Kaspa is now putting in millions of transactions, which is generating more fees, and tons of more developments are coming to only bring more use cases. The facts say differently about potential future adoption. Just remember, history shows it is not possible to insulate yourself from the consequences of others holding harder money that is harder than yours. And that's from the Bitcoin Standard. I'm simply planning accordingly to stay ahead financially. And I also just wanted to point something else out right here. This is the bitcoin.org website. And you could see here, it says bitcoin.org was originally registered and owned by Bitcoin's first two developers, Satoshi Nakamoto and Marty Malmi. Marty Malmi actually exists and is on X and actually has opinions. And if I go onto his X account, he retweeted this right here, which could be viewed as a political opinion, and he retweeted someone that said decriminalize all drugs, the number one reason for arrest, criminal violence, police violence, prison population in the USA. This person retweeted a political idea that all drugs should be decriminalized. So does this ruin the neutrality of Bitcoin because someone who contributed to Bitcoin has an opinion on something? No, it doesn't. And this is the double standard that I'm talking about. Bitcoin has people who exist and contribute to Bitcoin today, and also the people that contributed to it in the very early days, some of them do exist and still have opinions today as well. And it doesn't hurt the neutrality of Bitcoin. People are simply just getting upset because they're impatient with the price action of Kaspa, in my opinion. And I just believe that once a pump happens, this pretty much just gets brushed aside and no one even cares anymore about all these issues that they want to bring up. But right now, people are just looking to try to cast blame on a reason why their bags aren't pumping 24/7, not realizing that Kaspa is a long-term play and that they are not really investing for the long term. They're just worried about the short term, but I have a long-term outlook on this. One more thing I wanted to point out here. This person says it's history just repeating themselves. Bitcoin also was hated and not considered neutral because of the anonymous developer, and it had a criminal taint back in 2010. Right now, Kaspa is feared because of this drama in 2024. And I said, I agree. This is simply one of the growing pains that even Bitcoin was not excluded from during its early days. The beginning was tough, and like every new form of hard money, it has to get battle tested. This is one of those battles to prove how Cas can stand the test of time. And so I'm planning accordingly, and that's why a huge portion of my wealth is allocated towards Kaspa, just because I'm planning for the potential future, the long-term future, not just the short-term future where people are worried because Kaspa hasn't put in a new all-time high in the last 2 months. And the last all-time high was just only 2 months ago, just to remind you guys of that. So the next potential risk that Kaspa may have, which is, in my opinion, a way better argument, and not so much of something that I have a rebuttal for, but I could still kind of just not lead people to be so fearful about it, is Kaspa's future development risk. And this mainly being hard forks. Now, in the past, Da Vinci Jeremy had pointed out that Kaspa should not hard fork, and he said hard forks in general are all just bad, and I greatly disagree with this. Hard forks are not bad in and of itself, and I made a couple videos responding to Da Vinci Jeremy's claims, and those 2 videos did get a lot of attention, and there's a lot of information in there to kind of address the concerns that he had. But yes, hard forks in and of themselves are not bad. What could be bad is that after a hard fork, there's some kind of bug that was unaware to the developers that could potentially damage the perception of Kaspa being something trustworthy to keep your wealth in. Now, despite this risk existing, I really don't think this is going to really play out because of the structure and order of how Kaspa is being developed. A lot of people get upset because the Kaspa development is very slow, and I'm going to make a video pretty much addressing that in more detail. But we have a lot of order and structure on how developments will work for Kaspa to ensure that Kaspa has a successful launch of 10 blocks per second in the future, has a successful launch of Dagnite in the future, and even smart contracts in the future. But to do this, you got to make sure you got to do testing. You can't just rush into these things, and people get upset about things taking so long, but then they start to get upset when things get launched and they don't work. So I would rather wait and have a successful launch where everything actually works. And what we're currently waiting for is the crescendo hard fork, which will hard fork Kaspa into 10 blocks per second. And the amount of time and dedication that has gone into testing 10 blocks per second has been pretty much insane. For the past 8 months or so, 10 blocks per second has been running already and on another test network. And you are actually watching it active right now. This has been constantly running 24/7 for 8 months, and it's been monitored and pretty much being tested to find any kind of bugs or any kind of issues with this. And then on top of that, they have a very organized plan to implement 10 blocks per second into mainnet. And that plan is to first implement 10 blocks per second on a testnet version of Kaspa that is running 1 blocks per second, and then go ahead and test it on there. And then if that is successful, then they will do it on mainnet. So there's just a lot of testing and precautions going into this because, you know, Kaspa is close to around 4 billion market cap, and we seriously don't need a bug or some kind of error to happen where it will cause the Kaspa network to have to be halted or be reversed in some kind of way to try to fix the problems. Now, Kaspa is not excluded from any problems. Back when Kaspa had launched, there was actually a network crash within the first 2 weeks, and it is known as Kaspa Black Tuesday network crash, which caused Kaspa to have to commit a hard fork to fix the network. And if you don't know anything about that or have never heard that before, you should go ahead and check out this video so you can get more information about that. And then secondly, because of that hard fork, it led to a very strange wallet address existing, which is known as the burn wallet today. And you can actually watch this video to learn more about that as well. But Kaspa is not excluded from any problems ever happening. And even though that it did have a network crash in the very early stages, you could see that despite that happening, in the long run, Kaspa still prevailed and was able to succeed so far. So a lot of other cryptocurrency projects has gone through hard forks that resulted in some bad things happening and are still surviving today, but that's pretty much because they're more centralized in nature. And for Kaspa, for something to go wrong when a hard fork is committed is possible. It's not impossible to happen, but like I said, there's a lot of precaution, a lot of testing taking place to prevent any of these things from happening. So this is not really something that I'm extremely concerned about. And so in my opinion, these two risks that I brought up are simply short-term risk. These things can just affect Kaspa in the short term, but I think in the long term, people will just be laughing at these times that we were in. And I just am simply going to continue dollar cost averaging into Kaspa and not really trying to focus on timing the market. So I hope you guys enjoyed that video. And before we go, if you have not considered getting yourself a Tangent wallet, this is a really good cold storage device to allow you to keep your Kaspa offline and off exchanges. Whenever you keep your Kaspa on an exchange, you don't actually own your Kaspa, and it is way better to self-custody your Kaspa, and Tangent is a really great solution for this. If you use my code KaspaSilver at the checkout, you can get 10% off, and I highly recommend that you do get the 3-card set. And if you guys do use my code at the checkout, I will get a commission from this, and it greatly supports the channel. So thank you guys so much if you guys do consider that. And if you are new around here, please subscribe. Also, leave a like on the video if you did like it. And as always, don't be average, be different.